Hello and welcome to episode 1, season 2, baby. Season 2 of the Cowboys Takeover podcast. I'm your host, Jason Kent. Man, we hit free agency. It's a big time. Our Cowboys really seem to be bleeding free agents. You know, they were the last team to sign a free agent from another team, and it's just not looking good. You don't like what you see. I'm going to bring in my confidant, the capo of this, as we would say, Mr. Aaron James. Aaron, how are you feeling today? Yeah, we got some 75-degree weather today, too. So it's tough to be fully upset.
Yes, it is tough to be fully upset. And we're kicking off season 2 of Cowboys Takeover podcast. So, wish it was on more exciting terms with, the Cowboys making some moves in free agency. But, we'll be talking about that this episode. Obviously, Cowboys fans are disappointed based on where we are today. And our division has been getting busy and been getting after it in a very big way. But last I saw, as of yesterday, but I think this was before CJ Gardner-Johnson was signed, the Cowboys were still favored to win the division.
Dude, we'll get into it. I just don't see it. I'm just so upset right now with Jerry in that front office, because you look at the Eagles and they seemingly got much better, even though they lost, Kelsey, who is, potentially the greatest center of all time, Hall of Famer, probably first ballot. And then Fletcher Cox, who is a, multiple-time All-Pro, Pro Bowl player at defensive tackle. But they seem, they may not be those guys level, but they have guys to essentially slide into there. And that's, when I look at Dallas, they seem to be losing, you already assume Tyron Smith, even though he's not a free agent. You assume you're losing Tyron Smith. You assume you're losing Biotish. For me, it's tough because you lost so far, just running down the list of guys that Dallas is free agents for Dallas.
6, which is 16 total. Might not go over all of them, but that's a big number. You
got, Dorrance Armstrong signed with Washington, Tyler Biotish signed with Washington, Dante Fowler signed with Washington. I think that's a big deal. Even though Dante Fowler may not have been a huge piece, Dorrance Armstrong's not a huge piece. Biotish, big deal. Now you're moving both of those guys over with Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn's got some familiarity. Those players have familiarity. I'm not saying they're going to overtake Dallas, but it's just a thing. Maybe it speaks more to Dan Quinn as well, as how they felt as him as a coach. Because nobody really wants to go to Washington. They're not that great of a team. So I feel like taking 3 players from a team that division winner, probably the second or best team in the, I know they didn't get where they needed to be, but still probably going to be a top 3, top 4 team in the NFC this year. That speaks to the coaching and maybe what they felt about Quinn, maybe how they feel about McCarthy. But are you really upset with Jones at this point? Because the biggest move, we'll get into it later, Kendrick signing. How are you feeling right now? Because I'm just upset. Like, there's so many guys out there, and we'll go into some of the names that they could have had, but he's been so quiet for a team that the last 3 years has lost, twice to San Fran. Then you were favored at home against Green Bay, where you had the best offense in the NFL. You've put up how many straight games at home, putting up points, not losing. You get shellacked. I'm kind of disappointed right now in the Joneses.
This is malpractice and negligence at the highest level in the NFL that can take place. How do you not have any cap space when you have 16 players hitting free agency? That number one. Secondly, going into the season, even we talked about it all last season, we knew that we were going to have to sign CeeDee Lamb to a major extension. Parsons coming up, going to likely reset the market, and you have this big cap number for Dak that you have to address one way or another. And you just kind of sit back and do nothing, and you're unprepared to be able to go to market and pick up someone that where you make a phone call and they say, yeah, I'll work with you. Like we just don't even have that option available to us. Now, so while that's very frustrating, I had to go back and I had to look at when did we sign Cooks and when did we sign Gilmore last season, just to give us kind of perspective, because I know when the Gilmore news came out fairly early, and
he was more of a trade though. So to me, that's not
true.
even
That's
not really a signing. So that one's tough. But I go ahead.
So it was the 19th of March that we brought on Cooks.
Wow.
Okay, so a little bit over a week, or about a week into free agency, and the 14th of March, which would be today, a year ago today, we traded for Stephon Gilmore.
Dude, man, it's bothering.
And the news about a lot of these, when the legal tampering window opened, the media was coming out and saying this deal is done, but really deals weren't allowed to be executed on the dotted line until Wednesday 4 p.m. So I thought that was a little bit wonky this year. I don't remember it being that way in prior years, but I could be wrong. But so you have the mismanagement, the fiduciary mismanagement of the Jones and being unprepared, and you have our division getting a lot stronger and making splashes early on. And then you had running back signing deals that you just look back and be like, man, that looks like a really affordable
deal we should have had.
Yeah.
There's so many of them. So many running back deals out there. Like this few I was looking at, Derrick Henry, 2 years, 16 million. Not huge. It's 8 million. I think it'd be like 10 million. You got, Joe Mixon, who wasn't a free agent. He was he was traded, but he was traded for a 7th round pick. He could have helped Dallas. You got, Antonio Gibson was somebody I looked at who signed a fairly cheap deal. Maybe not. He may not be the big name splash that you necessarily want, but he's definitely a player. Early in his career at Washington, he was a 1,000-yard rusher on some bad teams. And then the Eagles, man, they go and sign Saquon. So the running back market that was really overloaded, because I didn't think they were going to get Josh Jacobs. He signed for a lot. And Aaron Jones, who was cut, signed for $7 million with Minnesota. So especially after seeing what he did against us, in the wild card game last year, you would think they would have went after one of these guys because they lost Pollard. Pollard was gone. They weren't going to give him what he had last year on that cap hit. I assumed he was going to get about an $8 million deal. Not a guy I would have given it to, because I really did like the guys that were out there. So it's just, I agree with you. I don't get it. And I'm starting to believe with talking to some friends and just kind of what I'm saying, it seems to like you were right before, because I think your thought was to get rid of CeeDee Lamb, or was it Micah?
Micah.
Okay. But even so, somebody had said to me, they think CD is going to be the guy to go, because they think they're going to keep Dak and you keep Micah, your best offensive, your best defensive, and they let CD go. And to me, if you're paying a quarterback that much money, when you look at what Kansas City's done, I'm not saying Dak's Patrick, because he's not, but they had to really get rid of their receivers, their receiving core, and bring in a lot of no-name, maybe not no-name, Juju's, but a lot of guys that just can't perform. So I think that's the route they're going, but that's a problem, because I really feel like CD may be gone, because you have to address the Dak situation. His cap hit's too high. He's coming up for free agency. You see a guy like Kirk Cousins getting another $40 million a year deal. How many $40 million deals does that dude sign? Dak's about to get paid. He doesn't seem, it doesn't feel to me like he's going to take a smaller average annual. It seems like he's going to try to milk the Joneses for everything it's worth, especially when you see all these dudes, I think Dak's brothers coming out talking about Eagles management and how great they are.
Yeah.
Like Dak's taking, going for the money, and that's not a good look. But it's been tough for us off season. I don't like it at all. We re-signed our own long snapper. That's a good thing. But when you lose 2/3 of your offensive line, you're losing a couple defensive linemen. You don't know how Diggs is going to hold up. So you're not going, it doesn't seem like they're going back after Gilmore. You have issues, big issues at linebackers, which we'll talk about in a little bit, because we did sign one. We got issues at safety. It's tough. It's tough, especially when you see the Eagles getting better. San Fran's made some moves. Green Bay, is probably is making going to make some moves. They lost some players, but they're making something. When you see everybody else getting better, and Dallas is seemingly getting worse. It's tough, man. It's tough.
It is tough at this stage and where we are, but things can change rapidly. I trust in Will McKay and our scouting staff. But when you see the lack of production we got from Mozzie Smith, we're still back at square one. And to me, if we are all in, we have to me that means we need to dedicate resources where we weren't successful the most, and that is to finally stop the bleeding in the run game.
Agreed.
So how are we, like, if we do nothing else on offense, even if it's like CD and Cooks as our 1 and 2, which is not really that good or impressive, if we bring in a big boy and another supporting cast in the linebacker spot, I think it's likely we bring Gilmore back one way or another. I think he wants to be back. So we have to, figure out how we can make this work. Now, if we were going with what you said with CeeDee Lamb being ousted, if you think of CD, Dak, and Micah, okay, who's going to have the most leverage in a trade? I think it is CD, because if you look at the quarterback market, those that are hungry for quarterbacks, they're going to have a top 3 pick. Justin Fields, is a good indication that there are teams out there that are like, we're good with what we have. We got Baker Mayfield, we got Geno Smith. Patriots are hungry. Like, who wants to go all in and try to do what the Broncos did? And we know how Russell Wilson panned out.
Yeah.
So who wants to do that? And who's, so we really have no leverage with Dak. But I do think with someone like CD, you have a organization maybe like the Carolina Panthers that are rebuilding that would be interested in adding that piece to their offense. You definitely don't want him in the division, but if that's going to be the case, they should have already came out and said, hey, we plan to tag CD, or we've allowed CD to seek out, trade or what have you. But none of that has been talked about. Historically, the franchise likes to, in a prideful way, pay for those that they've developed, that they've effectively scouted, and end up becoming top performers in the NFL. Of those, free agents, 16 free agent names, I still am not ready to let go of Tyron Smith.
I think he's gone, though. I'm not. He's our guy, but I do think he's gone.
Here's what I think ends up happening. If we don't get if we don't get the tackle we want in the draft for our first round pick, and he's not picked up, we bring him in.
I think if the market's not out there that he thinks is going to be, I think there's a shot he comes back. But I do believe people will believe in him enough. There'll be a team like a Green Bay who just got rid of their left tackle. And I'm sure there's a lot of other top tier teams that may have like a little, less than what you'd want left tackle, and bring him in on a kind of incentive laden deal where if he plays 16 games and performs, which we saw last year, he was still a very good player for us. So I still think the market's out there for him, though. That's the only issue. The market's always going to be there for a very good left tackle.
And if you want to talk about surprises, I was surprised how much money Tony Pollard got.
Was it 24 for 3 years?
I mean, he's going to be 28 this year, I believe.
Yeah, I that was too much. Even
smaller guy.
I figured he's going to get especially after what he did last year. I guess he was top 10 in rushing, and with the way the NFL's going, it's not really a run first league. But I think he could because he could catch a lot. He'd catch you 60 balls out of the backfield.
Yeah, but that's like RB1. That's like RB1 money, and we saw he can't really.
Oh, I agree. That's why I'm glad we let him go. I would have been more when you look at it too. I think now we kind of transition a little. Big time signings, a guy like Aaron Jones. I mentioned him, Mixon, Henry, Saquon. I felt like it was a little far fetched. When you look at those guys, I felt like those would have all been great guys for us.
Even
But
Austin Eckler, yeah,
Austin Eckler, 2 year. But let's,
2 year,
just
11
look,
million.
you mentioned every team in our division got better. So the big free agents that have signed just in our division, John Runyon is a pending deal with the Giants. They traded for Brian Burns and paid him. Right there, they lost Saquon, but Eagles got Saquon. Very underrated deal, I think. Devontae Parker, great deal. They signed
Yeah.
Bryce Huff. They stopped re-signed. They signed C.J. Gardner Johnson. So you look at Washington. They went out and got Austin Eckler. They signed Tyler Biotish. Clellan Ferrell might not be a great deal, but he gives them depth at defensive line. They signed the biggest issue. They signed Bobby Wagner, which really bothered me because I really wanted him. So when you look, we signed one linebacker. Every team in our division, and when we say major signings, there's a lot more. That's just in the division. There's guys everywhere. When you go through this list, man, the big signings, I feel like a lot of those guys Dallas could have went after, a few of them. I really would have liked Wagner. I think Austin Eckler at that deal, not a bad deal because he's a dude. He is a smaller back, but he's a guy that's proven he can do it and get you, 16 touchdowns a season between rushing and passing. He's a guy, maybe his workload's overdone. Jeremy Chin, who's a safety who got signed on a shorter deal by Washington. That's something we could have had. It's just I don't like it. I don't like what we're looking at. When you look at a lot of these teams, they're signing dudes on a smaller deal. One of the guys I wrote down, Jordan Poyer, was signed. Defensive tackle, Sheldon Rankins, who I thought were all guys that were signed on smaller deals. 8 to 10 million. It's not a small deal, but I feel like Dallas could have went after a couple of these guys. Patrick Queen, a little more. I don't think they could have gotten them, but there's so many signings out there for you're kind of like, oh, good for I would have loved that deal. Is it the cap space or is it Dallas just not? Do they feel they're a good team? Is Jones at this point believe more of the hype like he used to back in like after those Super Bowl teams, believe the hype of the team and maybe not see that there's needs?
Yeah, I mean, there was some speculation that we were interested in Zach Moss. He's a good speedster in open space, but I mean, if you look at Gabe Davis, he signed basically for the same amount of money as Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
I think that's really good value. Big guy. I always felt that he was underappreciated under the shadow of Diggs in Buffalo. Would have been excited about that, but we have yet to figure out what we're going to do with Gallup.
I heard Gallup's going. The rumor they're saying that they've granted him permission to seek a trade, but he could be released after the new year, the league starts, if he's not traded. Okay. That's not a good sign because they just signed him. I feel like I don't know what the cap hit looks like on that, but they just signed him right after that injury. It's 1 year after signing, dude. You're getting rid of him. You gave up on him. I guess 2 years, but still, it's tough, man. It's tough.
It is tough. I mean, he was coming off a big injury, and I think we were expecting the pre-injury Gallup to return and get that separation and big plays. Now, probably one of the more dependable hands on the team, big moment catches, clutch catches from Gallup. So that will be missed if we part ways, but I do think we should look to get some value. So if you're going to let him go one way or another or get him traded, we got to see that value either on the defensive side or back on the wide receiver side. But if he's out, we haven't even talked about Jaron Kearse or Jordan Lewis. That's potentially up to 7 starters.
That's a lot of players to lose.
We will be missing with a new defensive coordinator. This looks like a recipe that the Eagles just went through last year. With all the defensive turnover and new coordinators, and I
even felt they had more talent than us last year. That defense last year was still very talented. It does feel like that though. I didn't even think of that. That's not good.
So it is not. It's not good, and it is kind of a little bit a nice pat on the back that Zimmer was able to bring in someone based on relationship, right? Yeah. And it does feel good that Kendricks had verbally agreed with the 49ers and said,
that's what I thought. Because when they said he was signed, I was like, I thought this dude is already, like, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was looking at other linebackers.
Yeah. So the fact that he dissed the 49ers, that feels a little bit extra good. An NFC rival, and the fact that they were out after him, right there, they got to replace Greenlaw, who's going to be out probably
Yeah,
the whole season, is my guess.
I would think so. There's no way he doesn't. Yeah, what's that? Achilles tear? He's not a bad sign. I don't listen. I don't hate the Kendrick signings. He's a very solid player.
He
You
is.
know, he's a very when you look at his stats, he's getting last few seasons. He's consistently since his rookie year has gotten 100 tackles. Not a big 117 last year. But he's a guy missed a couple games. He'll miss a couple games throughout the year, but he's a very, very good player, better than what we have. So it is an upgrade big time. But when you look at, and I don't know if Bobby Wagner just doesn't want to come to Dallas, because I remember last year there were talks about him coming to Dallas.
That's true.
Or if we weren't looking at him. But when you have a dude that had 187 tackles last year out there free agency, and your biggest needs linebacker, and this dude's probably one of the best linebackers to ever play the game, he sees things that most linebackers aren't going to see. He can put you in. He's seen everything the game has to offer. He's that guy. Putting him in that defense, I think, would have been such more impactful than bringing in Eric Kendricks. Eric Kendricks is a good player. He's not Bobby Wagner. Even Bobby Wagner now can run. Still got it. 187 tackles. You still got something. But it's just tough, man. I don't like it. I don't like what we did. I like that we upgraded there, but you still feel you don't really have locked. You don't have a defensive tackle lockdown. You're still missing, depending on what Micah does. You don't know if he's still going to be end or outside linebacker. You're still missing 2 to 3 other linebacker positions. You don't have a slot safety. You still don't have or slot corner. You don't have great safeties. I don't like that we haven't made any move yet. It's frustrating because you're supposed to be all in. You're Jerry Jones.
What do you think? So Seattle released both their safeties, if I recall, Diggs and Jamal Adams.
Jamal makes me nervous. I'd love him. I trade for him almost every year in Madden. I'm a big Jamal Adams guy. I don't. He's been injured a lot. Maybe a change of scenery. I think you could get him kind of a cheaper deal because he has been injured a lot. Maybe teams aren't. But I have to look real quick. I think he's still only 26, 27.
Yeah, it's definitely a 1-year deal because you don't know his motivation anymore. He got paid.
He's 28. Well, a lot of that, see, I think he's 28. I would be okay on a 1 to 2 year deal. I would be okay on a 2 year deal with him at 28 because if he stays healthy, he's still going to be one of the top safeties in the league. I do believe
he's a run stopper.
And he's a thumper. The only issue, he hasn't played 16 games since his second year. So, he's played 16, then 14, 12 with Seattle, 12 with Seattle, 1, and then 9 last year. So if it has to be a very team-friendly contract, but I think there are still, I think, a lot of good players out there that could really help this Dallas team. When you look at the remaining free agents, who out there, either one of those guys, is that something would you look at either one of those guys? Or would they be are your tops on your safety priority?
I mean, I think it's they're the most interesting. Diggs is probably looking for something more long-term. I think Adams could potentially fit on a short-term kind of deal, and he would help with the run. And he's like a package guy, right? You bring him in on a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 6, and short type of situation. You would likely need to trade Hooker out or someone else. I mean, we still have Donovan Wilson for 2 more years, I believe. And we're gonna have Gilmore, Bland, and Diggs, hopefully. So that would really solidify that part. And our DTs, do we bring in? I don't know. We just got to trade for a big boy. Jonathan Hankins, he's been holding down the fort. Stayed pretty healthy for the most part of last year. And Odighizola shows promises. But we really need to plug that space. And I don't think we get rid of Damon Clark. I think he's here to stay. I just think that
I'm okay with him. I think he played well last year. I'd really. What's the kid from Baylor? What's the linebacker from Baylor that got hurt last year? The third round kid. Forget his name, but
Overshown.
yeah, I want to see what I want to see a full off season. Get him healthy. Let's get him out there. I want to see what he does because I
Yeah,
did love his speed last year. The only issue, he is a guy that is more of a speed guy. He's not the thumper in the middle of that. So maybe he moves to edge. I don't know if he's much of a middle linebacker. He is very thin, but he is a
yeah.
big boy and he's fast. He moves. So he fits that, whatever he fit last year's scheme perfectly. I don't really know what Zimmer does. I haven't watched him in a long time. I know his defense back in the day was great when we had it before, but I haven't really seen any of his defenses recently. But when you look out there, is there anybody left that you're like, okay, like 3, 4, I don't know how many guys. When you look through it, who's a guy that like, man, I feel like these are guys that are going to help us and could start for us right now. Is there anybody out there that you really want to sign that's left?
Well, I was most interested in Aaron Jones because he always kills it in our stadium, and why not put a Cowboys jersey on him?
What does he have, like 1,000 yards in 10 games against Dallas or something? He's averaging over 100 yards a game against us in
and
Dallas.
like 3 touchdowns a game.
Wild.
So I mean that would be interesting. I had texted you regarding Calvin Ridley. I didn't know he was going to sign that kind of money.
I didn't know that either. I didn't know he was $100 million receiver. You know what's funny though? My buddy sent me something the other day. He was like, Tennessee doesn't want to pay a 24-year-old AJ Brown $90 million. It was like $75 million for 4 years. They paid 30-year-old dude $100 million, Calvin Ridley, who hasn't done anything near what AJ Brown's done. It just made me laugh. But he got overpaid. Yes.
I guess Marquise Brown is still out there, speedster. But it's like we don't do. I mean, we have Turpin.
Cooks.
With
you got Cooks. You got
Turpin.
Set. Yeah, I don't know if he's a guy I would look at. I do like receiver. I think a guy who was I just looking at? I think a dude, maybe depending on the deal, a Tyler Boyd, an OJ, or an Odell Beckham. I think both of those guys could be a slot receiver for this team, depending on what you're doing with Cooks and Gallup. Or Odell Beckham could be an outside guy. You could put him on the outside. He looked like he did really well down the stretch with Baltimore, and in the playoffs, he was relied on a lot, especially after Mark Andrews went down. I like those guys.
I think Beckham still has a diva price tag on him. That's just my take on that. But what about? I was just looking at this guy's name, and it escaped me.
There were 3 or 4 dudes on defense, and I have them on all levels. The guys that I really like, when I look on offense, I think we're pretty set. I think a Tyler Boyd is going to be overpriced for what we're looking at. I agree with you. Odell may still be overpriced, still may have that diva name tag, but I think there's a lot of guys out there you may be able to get. I honestly love Devin White. I don't know why he's not getting picked up. I don't know why he's being downplayed.
Yes.
Kid's 26 years old. Outside of last year, the 3 seasons before that, he had 140 tackles like each year. He's a guy at 26 years old. I would have no issue giving that guy a 3 or 4 year deal, locking him up, especially at a good price. He's a dude I'd look at. I'd love to look at Chase Young at the right price. It's tough because, like you said, Dallas is so bad in that cap. You just don't know. I don't know how good Cameron Curl is. I've seen him play a decent amount. I don't know what he's going to look like. I would kick the tires on that dude. He's a safety, something we need. And then there was one more guy. Where are we at? Calais Campbell. I thought he may be, because he's 37. He's looking for a team that wants to win now. He's a dude that I could see taking a cheaper deal to get with a team that can win a Super Bowl. So I'm okay with because he did, he had a decent amount of sacks last year. He could give you 5, 6, 7 sacks. He's probably not going to be an every down guy. He's definitely could be a situational pass rusher at this point. But I think they need to focus on defense. And right there, I think those players, you have all 3 levels of your defense. Got defensive line, linebacker, safety. I don't really know if you need corner yet. I would love to re-sign Gilmore because what he did last year, and then you can move what's his name back to the slot. What's
Bland.
his name? Bland. There we go. Deron Bland. We move him back to the slot. I think that would be a good move because I don't know what Gilmore's going to get. But those are the dudes. I'd also have to look at a couple offensive linemen. You can't go in with two rookie or, Mekhi Becton's young. He's with the Jets. He's the guy that could still grow. He's only 24. He's a guy you can take a 1 or 2 year deal on. But those are really the dudes. And again, I guess it's all price driven and then what you're looking at in the draft. But right now, Chase Young, Devin White, those are two big names. Cameron Curl, Trent Brown, offensive line, Mekhi Becton, offensive line. I think those are the names I'm looking at. I don't know if you can bring in another. All the receivers are smaller receivers at this point. Like you said, I don't know. I love what Turpin does for us. I really want to see him continue to grow in that offense. And we have Cooks. It's tough for me to bring in a smaller guy, which all these guys seem like left.
I agree with that. And I'm pretty sure Noah Brown is also a free agent. And you mentioned Tyler Boyd, who's been a Mr. Dependable third down guy for the Bengals.
Yeah.
And I've had him in my fantasy team a couple of years back. But if you look
before
at
they got all those weapons.
True. But if you look at how many targets Noah Brown had, and I feel like the comfort level with Dak and Noah, if we bring them back in, you have another dependable third down guy with Fergie. If they take CeeDee Lamb out of the mix,
See, I'm good with Cooks and Turpin and any of those tight ends. I don't know, but because I watched Dak overthrow how many guys this year. I'm tired of hearing the Dak comfort thing. He's trash. I'm so mad at him right now. I'm back on the Dak does. I don't like Dak train anymore.
Okay.
But Tyler Boyd a few years ago, before they got all those weapons in Cincinnati, he was a guy. I don't know if he's that guy anymore, but I do like the size he gives me. I don't know how big Noah, but I thought he was a little bit more small of a guy. I thought Tyler Boyd was a little bit bigger. Because that's what Dallas needs, a big guy out there, and they just don't have it. But I just don't know. We're still a little ways out. There's a million different mock drafts, but I think there's still some needs that Dallas needs to fill. There's a lot because that defense, there's still some glaring holes. And yes, Aaron Jones is a guy, not Aaron Jones. I did want him. I want their backup. AJ Dillon. He's a kid who he's 25. He's young. When he had to go in for Aaron Jones, kid's a mon. His power. Like I said before in the green room, dude, his quads. I'm like one of his quads. Just me. I'm a little overweight. That's how big this dude's quads are. And he's a powerhouse. And I don't want to say he reminds me of Zeke, but he's that head down, grind it out, just gritty running back, and kind of like Zeke was in the beginning, you could get that extra yards. So I would love to bring him in as a first and second down back, and be okay with who we got out back at the second, third running back. Even throw Turpin back there a little bit. You let him do some gadget stuff. That's what I would love to see. You leave AJ out there first and second down, and let those speedsters go out there for third down. I think he would be a huge signing for this team because he's totally different than Pollard. It's not going to be that 3 yard. This dude's going to give you 6 yards and hurt the defense. The defense doesn't want to tackle this dude, especially in the fourth quarter. So I would love AJ Dillon on this Dallas team. He would give Dak, I feel, a lot of help.
We'll have to spend more time talking about trades on our next episode because free agency frenzy is really about a 2-week type of span, and then that really tells players like, okay, now that free agency have settled, it's now the trade market, draft, and then back to free agency after the draft to see how teams ended up shaking out. And I want to say with that, one wide receiver that I've always been a fan of, Tyler Lockett.
Is he a free agent?
No, he's not a free agent.
Okay.
But I'm saying it's someone you can go out and try to get. Always been a big fan of Tyler Lockett.
I do like him. I just don't know if I'm trading. It's not a receiver. It's just tough for me because I think that the offense I still think is going to be good regardless of offensive weapons. I think what we have is great. I would trade for an offensive lineman if you don't re-sign Tyron. It's going to be huge if we lose Tyron Smith. That's a huge, huge loss because now 2/3. I said one of our first episodes, I thought center was a big deal. We lost our center. You lose your left tackle. That's not good, especially for a team that had issues last year.
Tyler Smith can go to left tackle, and we can go after a left guard. So depending on what's best available between left tackle, left guard.
Would you make that move though? Because he is an all-pro.
Yes.
But almost he's like that's my issue. Is you have an all-pro at one position. He's an all-pro at left guard. I don't want to. It's tough to move him because you're not moving him.
Okay with moving him.
You're moving him mid NFL career. You're not moving him like Landon Dickerson for the Eagles. He came out as a college center. Then he moved to guard because of Kelsey. Now he's the highest paid guard in the NFL. It's tough. They're not moving it. Like it's tough for me to move a dude out of an all-pro position because I don't know if he'll be an all-pro in the other one.
Well, I mean, if he's an A- at left guard, he's probably a B+ at left tackle. And so if you leave him at left guard, we're probably going to have a B- situation at left tackle, especially if you go in through the draft. So, or even a C+. So for that reason, you'd rather have the B+ at left tackle and then bring in a B- at left guard or something along those lines.
Man, it's just because I hear what you're saying. I just think both of them next to each other. I don't know if that two new cogs in your wheel right there. I feel like may hurt the structure of the wheel. At least here, I know I got a firm foundation in the middle with both of my guys. Maybe it plays a little different. Listen, I'm okay if he can be a B- in year 3 because he's going to be here a while. Year 3 at left tackle, he's going to grow into it and he's going to get a big contract. I'd be okay if that's the move. If they believe in him, I'm okay making that move because he is a first-round guy. He was a left tackle coming out. He did play some left tackle for us. Didn't look too great left tackle, but he was a rookie. So it's tough to really judge a rookie coming in that first year. But there's a lot of holes, and like Aaron just said, Aaron James, we got free agents. A lot of it's kicked off. A lot of the big names, a lot of big dudes out there. We got a draft coming up in a little over a month. Hopefully by that point, Dallas is a little more settled and a little bit more know where they're at position-wise and know what they need. Because if this is the only signing, I would say it's almost an F for the offseason. B- for the signing, C+, I think for that signing, but overall be a fail. And that's where they're at right now with everybody getting better. But man, it's March and it's football season almost still. There's still so much to talk about, but it's a beautiful thing. But we appreciate every one of you coming out. This episode 1 of season 2, coming out, listening to us, checking us out. We really appreciate everything. We really hope you guys stay with us throughout the off season. I'm sure you will. Never the most flashy time, but there's always some big stuff going on. Like Aaron said, last March we got Gilmore and Cooks. So big things can still happen. Still some big name free agents out there that could have huge impact on this Dallas team. So there's still a long way left. Just don't like it. You just see the Eagles getting so much better. It's terrible. But this is episode 1. Thank you so much. We will be back. We'll let you guys know when we're dropping the next episode, usually in the off season, a little bit about every 2 weeks instead of every week. Definitely not, less going on. Don't have as much to talk about. A little tougher to put a show together. But coming up, we're definitely going to have some more free agents. With signings, we'll definitely be on talking about them. And then we'll have a draft preview show coming up within the next few weeks because the draft, I'll have to talk to Mr. Aaron James, but I'm sure we'll do some sort of live stuff again this year for the draft. It was a blast. Thank you all. Check out the Facebook page, all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Cowboys Takeover Podcast. Is that all of them, Aaron? I think that's it. We are good with that. So thank you all. Appreciate you all for listening. God bless. Let's go Cowboys. I don't hate Dak. I'm just disappointed. Just very disappointed. Enjoy the rest of your week. If you're on the East Coast or just in Jersey, I don't know where it is anywhere else, enjoy your next 2 days. 75 and sunny, baby. Let's go. Go Cowboys. Enjoy.